Uniqueness and Significance of My Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, VMT, and Topological Data Analysis, TDA, Research Methods in Modern Medical Science, number 1388, VMT Sharp 725, TDA Sharp 009, October 12, 2025, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category, Methodology. Mission Statement. I write these medical papers not for fame or recognition, since I have already lived a long and successful life, though not always a healthy one. My purpose now is to share what I have learned about health, disease, and medicine, so that others can better understand their health conditions, prevent illness, and live longer, healthier lives. Introduction. For 16 years, I have conducted self-directed medical research that integrates mathematics, physics, engineering, artificial intelligence, pathology and physiology. Among my 1,388 publications, over 700 focus on the Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, VMT, a math-physical framework that models chronic disease, progression and health recovery as dynamic stress-strain interaction energy processes. More recently, I introduced Topological Data Analysis, TDA, to visualize geometric stability, manifold contraction, and system coherence over time. VMT quantifies system energy, while TDA visualizes geometry shape. Together they provide a dual lens on the same pathophysiological reality. This article explains how my approach differs from mainstream medical research, and why comparable VMT-based frameworks are rarely found in clinical literature. I summarize the current status of my VMT and TDA program, present the core methodology, with clear definitions of stress, strain, and energy in biomedical terms, and show how geometry and energy converge on the same conclusion. About long-term health restoration through disciplined lifestyle management. The core of my research framework, two intellectual roots from my MIT years in the early 1970s, shaped both of my medical research methods: Viscoplastic Medicine Theory, VMT, and Neural Network Modeling, NNM. First, Professor Norman Jones taught viscoplastic impact modeling in structural engineering, which quantifies irreversible deformation by tracking energy dissipation under dynamic loads. Second, Professor Patrick Winston taught machine learning and AI, emphasizing structure, representation, and pattern recognition. I combined these lines of thought to create a system-level medical model. In VMT, stress denotes physiological or behavioral input load. Examples include blood pressure, glucose, body weight, lipid load, and lifestyle burdens such as excessive food quantity, poor diet quality, insufficient walking steps, inadequate sleep, and unmanaged stress. Strain denotes measurable pathological output, such as health age, disease index, or organ-specific risk, particularly mortality diseases. Energy denotes cumulative biological adaptation or damage across time, calculated as an integral of stress acting through strain. The model admits dynamic natures, nonlinearity, hysteresis, and irreversibility, matching the true behavior of human health living systems under chronic load. Conventional medical research typically relies on population averages, linear correlations, or regressions. Such snapshots are useful for screening but cannot capture path dependence, damage, accumulation, recovery dynamics, or memory effects. VMT energy method moves beyond those limits. It treats the body as an engineered or physical system where loads, strain rates, and dissipation determine whether the structure stabilizes or fails. VMT provides a dynamic portrait that explains not only what changed, but also why and how it will evolve if the loads persist or are reduced. Integration with topological data analysis. After my stroke on June 21, 2025, I suddenly recalled my topology training at age 20, when I was a senior in the Department of Applied Mathematics, and began applying TDA to complement VMT about 1 month ago. While VMT measures system energy, TDA examines geometric shape. VMT asks how much energy is dissipated or recovered, whereas TDA explores what the manifold looks like and whether it is expanding, drifting, or contracting into a stable configuration. I analyze the health manifold by projecting multidimensional variables onto the PC1-PC2 plane, using principal component analysis, PCA, as a geometric summary. PC1 captures the dominant variance, typically representing the long-term metabolic trajectory. A sustained leftward or downward drift of PC1 indicates contraction toward a stable, low-energy state. PC2 captures secondary variance, often reflecting short-term behavioral fluctuations, such as diet irregularity, exercise variation, sleep inconsistency, or stress spikes. When PC2 oscillations gradually damp toward zero, lifestyle rhythm becomes more stable. Together, PC1 and PC2 create a compressed geometric map of health evolution. Data points shifting from a wide, scattered cloud, a large polygon, to a tight, compact cluster. A small, spherical shape signified geometric contraction of the health manifold and a reduction in internal energy. To make the geometry more intuitive, I also use two-dimensional radar chart polygons to summarize multidimensional stressors across different time periods. In my from 2010 to 2025 longevity analysis, the radar polygon area contracted from 5.18 to 0.92, an 82% reduction in geometric size. During the same period, my total VMT energy decreased from 100% to 4.2%, a 96% energy reduction. Two independent systems, one grounded in physics and the other in mathematics, arrived at highly similar conclusion. Consistent lifestyle control can transform a high-stress, high-energy, and unstable topology into a compact, low-energy, and stable configuration. Methodology details, from variables to energy. The VMT workflow consists of 4 steps. Step 1. Define variables and normalize. I select multiple stress variables that represent controllable loads or biomarker loads, and a sugar strain variables that represent organ outcome, mortality disease risk, or an integrated health age index. I normalize each variable to a healthy reference, so that directions and magnitudes are comparable over long horizons. Step 2. Map stress to strain with dynamics. Rather than relying on static correlation, I track stress histories, strain rates, and thresholds. I explicitly allow nonlinear responses, hysteresis, and irreversible shifts. This step encodes the reality that a body remembers its past loads. Step 3. Integrate energy across time. I compute cumulative viscoplastic energy as the integral of stress, acting through strain over daily, monthly, or annual intervals, with appropriate scaling and weights determined by physiological plausibility and longitudinal stability checks. Step 4. Validate geometry against energy. I compare the VMT energy record with TDA geometry. If energy falls and the manifold contracts, I accept convergence. When they disagree, I re-examine normalization, weightings, and rate terms until the mechanism and the geometry align. PC1 and PC2, a note on interpretation. PC1 represents the largest component of longitudinal change, often the slow contraction toward stability if lifestyle is disciplined. A leftward or downward PC1 drift means the manifold is tightening and internal energy is falling. PC2 represents the next largest component, often seasonal or weekly lifestyle fluctuations. When PC2 swings reduce, sleep is steadier, diet is more consistent, and stress is better managed. The most convincing sign of recovery is a sustained PC1 drift toward stability, along with damping of PC2 oscillations. Quantitative findings from my current medical studies. In my latest analysis, the health age index, defined as physiological health age divided by chronological real age, serves as the single strain output. 4 selected stress inputs drive it: biomarkers, diet, and exercise, mind and body, and overall metabolism index, or OMI. Over past 16 years, the total viscoplastic energy equals 661.45 units, distributed as biomarkers is 32.5%, OMI is 24.3%, diet and exercise is 23.6%, mind and body is 19.7%. This implies a roughly 40% to 60% split between biomarker-driven energy and lifestyle-driven energy, with lifestyle dominating. TDA geometry independently suggests that about 80% of stabilization comes from behavioral improvements, and about 20% from biomarker adaptation. Both lines of evidence agree on the practical truth patients need to know. Behavior, measured consistently and managed with discipline, drives long-term health recovery. 60% to 80% of total influences. Comparison with stroke study and recent 16 years of medication-free record. Earlier in my life, I spent 2 decades, from 1990 to 2009, relying on medications. In contrast, during the past 16 years, from 2010 to 2025, I have been completely medication-free, depending solely on disciplined lifestyle control. My stroke study, number 1366, September 25, 2025, showed that 91% of stroke-related damage was associated with medication-dependent metabolic conditions during the earlier period, while only 9% of stroke risk was linked to lifestyle factors during the medication-free years. This shift from 91% to 9% demonstrates that medication can stabilize acute metrics, but cannot reconfigure the system's energy state or truly cure chronic diseases. In contrast, consistent daily behavior modifications can improve, and in some cases, partially reverse, chronic disease progression. Using my chronic medical AI on iPhone, I implement my VMT equations in real time for diet, steps, hydration, sleep, and stress. These controls lowered energy, shrunk the manifold, and stabilized the system without pharmacology. Medications address symptoms and acute risks. Lifestyle reconfigures the system and sustains equilibrium. Relation to my other medical researchers' work. My research departs from most clinical practice in several ways. 1. Physics-based core, VMT models the body as an energy system under load, not a collection of linear associations. Concepts include stress, strain, rate effects, hysteresis, and irreversible deformation. 2. Nonlinear dynamics. VMT accepts path dependence and memory. Normalizing a marker today does not erase prior damage. 3. Longitudinal precision. I rely on more than 4 million self-collected data points over past 16 years, which supports cause-effect integration and signal validation across time scales. 4. Quantified lifestyle contribution. Rather than treating behavior as noise, or an outlier from a statistical viewpoint, I quantify its share of total system energy. In my studies, this distribution consistently favors lifestyle behavior, typically around 60% or higher, and in some cases reaching up to 80%. 5. Human experiment of medication-free. To my knowledge, there is no comparable longitudinal dataset documenting sustained recovery without medication, using a physics-based energy model. 6. AI integration. My chronic AI tool merges neural network predictions for micropatterns with VMT physics for macro stability, enabling personalized, actionable feedback loops. 7. An open and educational approach to transparency. Around 1,000 of my papers have been published in medical journals and conference proceedings, complemented by 2 new YouTube channels. Health Talk with EclaireMD for professionals and Chat Jerry for patients and the general public. I openly share knowledge, research findings, personal datasets, equations, normalization factors, and assigned weights derived from pathophysiological reasoning, enabling replication and verification by other researchers. These distinctions define what I call math physical medicine, an approach that treats health as a dynamic energy system, governed by mathematical principles and physical laws and responsive to disciplined action. Current status of topological data analysis in medicine. TDA has found strong use in medical imaging, because images have obvious geometry. Outside imaging, TDA is growing but remains limited. They have indeed been increasing since about 2018, but the total number of such studies remains small compared to imaging. Certain published work exists on, such as type 2 diabetes trajectories, COVID-19 comorbidity networks, and cardiovascular signals. Most of these studies are descriptive. They identify clusters, persistence diagrams, or connectivity changes, but generally do not explain why those shapes emerge. Few establish quantitative physiological models behind topological features. In particular, they do not link manifold geometry to a mechanistic energy model. My work does, a framework I refer to as the geometry to energy model. I connect geometric contraction directly to viscoplastic energy depletion, create mutual validation between mathematics and physics, and supply a coherent framework that clinicians and patients can use. Uniqueness of viscoplastic medicine theory. In medicine, viscoplasticity has mainly appeared in biomechanics of living tissues, a 2022 nonlinear viscoplastic softening model based on Norton-Hoff simulated brain tissue, impact and predicted injury zones. Work from 2013 to 2014 introduced elasto-viscoplastic facial tissue models for wrinkling and age-related deformation, a 2019 visco hyperelastic tendon model linked rate-dependent strain to overuse injuries, a 2020 review connected extracellular matrix, viscoelasticity and viscoplasticity to fibrosis, cancer, and inflammation. None of these efforts define a holistic medical theory for systemic health. The term viscoplastic medicine theory and its research methodology appear exclusively in my publications. My innovation reinterprets mechanical variables for biomedicine. Stress becomes lifestyle or biomarker load. Strain becomes physiological or disease outcome. Energy becomes cumulative metabolic impact, including both degeneration and regeneration. Unlike metals, the human body cells self-repair themselves, such as autophagy phenomenon. VMT quantifies how much regenerative potential remains, and how much damage has been dissipated. I have applied this unified geometry to energy model to part of more than 50 disease categories, particularly major mortality diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, CVD, chronic kidney disease, CKD, cancer, stroke, and dementia. The VMT research model has also been extended to conditions like obesity, aging, autophagy, sleep disorders, dental health, and even to psychological and personality-related disorders, along with some selected life science topics. 18 years of interdisciplinary study across 7 universities in 8 academic disciplines, followed by 9 years of psychology self-study and 16 years of medicine self-study, provided the foundation for this integration. Integration of VMT, TDA, and neural network modeling. I use 3 lenses that together cover the full spectrum of analysis. Macro view, VMT energy. This captures total system energy and long-term stability, answering whether the structure is strengthening or weakening and by how much. Meso view, TDA geometry. This reveals the manifold shape, cluster coherence, and contraction. It bridges the annual energy story with lifestyle behavior. Micro-view, NNM outliers. This level identifies daily nonlinear spikes and dips that push or pull the system. These outliers or extreme cases, when repeated, become the seeds of macro-level change. It mirrors engineering fracture mechanics in medicine, where repeated small overloads lead to irreversible catastrophic shifts, a process revealed by closely examining detailed data patterns through AI tools. This research architecture is like using a telescope for the global view, a microscope for the fine structure, and an energy sensor for the hidden flows. No single tool alone can provide this completeness. Together, they do. Scientific and philosophical implications. Chronic disease and aging are not merely biochemical phenomena. They are energy imbalances governed by nonlinear, dynamic, irreversible laws. Much like those that control materials under long and heavy load histories, the body can adapt to moderate stress, yet accumulates damage under prolonged overload. Lifestyle discipline reduces internal energy, restores coherence, and opens room for regenerative processes. This explains why medication can normalize certain numbers temporarily, but cannot ensure lasting recovery without reconfiguring the body's energy landscape. Since no drug can completely eliminate the underlying causes of disease, my post-stroke experience illustrates this principle. Through neuroplasticity exercises and strict metabolic control, I lost some memory, yet gained improved cognitive ability, including the sudden recall and practical application of topology knowledge learned nearly 6 decades ago. The nervous system regained function by reorganizing neurons and their connecting pathways, through the phenomenon of neuroplasticity. Broader perspective and mission. I work independently without formal medical school training, institutional funding, laboratory facilities, or affiliations. I hire no assistants and do not collaborate with medical professors. This independence eliminates bureaucracy and potential bias, allowing rapid iteration, broad exploration, and honest reporting. My mission remains education and patient empowerment, as stated in the mission statement at the beginning of this article. Modern healthcare infrastructure naturally emphasizes biomarkers and pharmacology, because they align with established medical systems, and are closely interconnected with the processed food, pharmaceutical, insurance, and, to some extent, government sectors through strong industry lobbies. This alignment reflects structural convenience, rather than scientific completeness, as lifestyle-based prevention, though less commercialized, plays an equally vital and measurable role in achieving long-term health outcomes. However, lifestyle behaviors, driven by personality, willpower, discipline, and resilience, do not fit well within those commercial frameworks. Yet they are both measurable and decisive. A model that balances scientific rigor with personal accountability will ultimately save far more lives than medication alone. My open publication and information transparency. All of my research results, including research models, datasets, equations, are openly published across multiple platforms. About 1,000 papers have appeared in medical journals and conference proceedings. I also run 2 YouTube channels, Health Talk with EclaireMD for medical professionals and Chat Jerry for patients and general audiences. My approach differs from traditional institutional research, which often relies on journals and conferences, but is constrained by proprietary data and limited accessibility for the public. I publish my normalization factors, formulas, and weights, so that others can replicate or critique my research work. Availability and transparency are preconditions for genuine scientific progress, and for building a better future. Conclusion. After 16 years of continuous self-tracking and analysis, I can state with confidence that no other researcher has developed, or applied a viscoplastic energy model to human medicine as comprehensively and longitudinally as I have. My integration of VMT with TDA and NNM establishes a new and more encompassing scientific discipline. Viscoplastic medicine connects physics, engineering, mathematics, and physiology into a single actionable system. The evidence demonstrates that lifestyle factors, quantified through mathematics and physics, and further visualized through topology, governs most long-term health outcomes. This discipline does not merely adjust traditional medicine, it reframes it as a proactive system science rooted in energy, dynamics and human responsibility. The patients are no longer only a recipient of healthcare, but the primary engineer of health system stability. With clear research models, transparent data, and disciplined practice, health can be stabilized and recovered. Disclaimer: this content is for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights belong to the author. Gerald C.